everyone. Welcome to Vacation Bible School. I'm Angela Ritchie, the Director of Children's Ministry here at Grace United Methodist Church, and this is our final week of VBS. This has been such a meaningful experience for me, and I hope it's been for you and your family as well as you're worshiping together. This last day, we have something that's incredible and fun with our stories and prayers and music. So let's get started by singing together.
Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Oh, great is our God, so let our songs be endless. So awesome God's ways, how could we understand them? We praise the majesty of our King. So lift your voices loud as we sing. We will sing your praise, share your love and fame. We will bless your name. Let everyone give thanks, because our God is great.
Thank you to the band for providing such great music and worship during Vacation Bible School. Now, let's get ready for our story. This is the desert, and the desert is a dangerous place. People don't go in the desert unless they have to. It doesn't rain in the desert, so there's not a lot of water, and not many things grow in the desert, so there's not a lot to eat. And you need food and water to live. During the daytime, the sun burns down and burns your skin. And at night, it gets very cold. When the wind blows, the sand stings. People wear a lot of clothes in the desert. And when the wind blows, the desert changes shape. And if you don't know where you are, you can get lost. The desert is a dangerous place, and people don't go there unless they absolutely have to. There was a family who lived in the desert, by the water in the great city of Ur. And this family was close with God. Abraham and Sarah were a part of that family. And when God told Abraham and Sarah to move to a new place, they did. They took all of their sheep, their tents, and their helpers with them as they went to their new home. Hagar had to go with them as well. She was one of Sarah's slaves. Hagar was a strong woman and full of courage. One night, God made a promise with Abraham. You will have a son, and you will be the father of a great family, and Sarah will be its mother. Abraham laughed. He and Sarah were very old. God's promise sounded impossible. One, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years went by, and Abraham and Sarah did not have any children. They didn't understand. God had promised that they would have a son, but they were both so old. How could this happen? Sarah thought, my slave, Hagar, can have a baby, and she can give the baby to us. But the idea confused Hagar. No, God promised that Sarah would have a baby, not me. But because Hagar was a slave, she had to do whatever Sarah told her to. When Hagar learned that she was going to have a baby, she looked at Sarah and wondered, why is this happening to me? After Sarah hurt Hagar, Hagar ran away into the desert. The desert is a dangerous place, but it's the place that Hagar went to be safe. Hagar wandered in the desert. Where will I get food? Where will I get water? God was with Abraham and Sarah. Is God with me here? Hagar was forgotten. She was hurt. And for the first time in her life, she was all alone. But God remembered her. God cared for her. God was with Hagar. And Hagar came close to God, and God came close to Hagar. And God made a promise with Hagar. You will have a son, and you will name him Ishmael. And Hagar gave God a name. You are the God who sees me. Hagar looked across the desert at all the grains of sand and all the stars in the sky. God was with her in this dangerous place. Hagar had her son, and she named him Ishmael. Sarah and Abraham sent Hagar and Ishmael back to the desert. And Hagar protected Ishmael, and he grew up and was strong, just like his mother. The desert was their home, and God was with them. People to this day still go out into the wilderness to be close with God, even though the wilderness can be a dangerous place. It's a place that we aren't in control of. We don't control the wind or the weather, the sand, the heat, the water. Hagar didn't have a lot of control in her life. And when she went into the desert to this dangerous place, she saw that God was with her there. It reminds me of when we don't have a lot of control in our lives or in the things happening in the world. Somehow we know that God is still with us. And being in the wilderness reminds me of that. It reminds me that God is in control of all of these things, even though I am not. I wonder how you feel being in the wilderness. I wonder, when you go outside, what are all of the things that you see? I wonder how you feel close with God. Ava is going to lead us in an activity to help us explore ways that we can be close with God in the wilderness as well. And for this activity, you're going to need a paper and something to make colors with, colored pencils or crayons or paint. And you're just going to make a lot of different colors on your paper, maybe in circles or in a grid. So get out your paper and stuff to make colors with, and Ava will lead us in an activity.
Hi, I'm Ava, and today we're going to be doing a scavenger hunt. All you need is something that you can color with. So it could be crayons, colored pencils, or markers. And you need a piece of paper. So what you're going to do is you're just going to put all your color on one thing. And then once you have all your colors on your paper, you can go outside and look around in your backyard, or you can go on a walk with your family and walk with them and look, see. And basically what you're going to do is you're just going to see what things in nature look the same as your colors. So even it could be any animal too. So if you see like a cardinal and it matches a red, or like a bluebird, any of those. So over here we have like flowers, and it matches my yellow and my purple. And also there's some brown that matches the barks on the trees, and the leaves match the green. And that's what you're going to be doing today. I hope you enjoy this and have fun with it, and have fun with all the other VBS stuff.
Hi, my name's Angie Clendenning, and I go to Grace Church. I have a husband and 4 boys and 2 dogs, and I love to be outside. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I find God when I'm outside. And to do that, I'm going to tell you a story. So when I was probably about your age, I was maybe about 9 years old, I got to go to church camp. And for church camp, we actually stayed overnight for a whole week. So my 2 friends and I went, and we were super excited, and we had a great time the first day, and we were running around and like eating camp hamburgers and playing soccer and having all kinds of fun. And then I was having fun, but then at night, when it got to be time to it started getting dark and I started thinking about going to bed, I started getting a little bit nervous, and my tummy started churning a little bit, and I was starting to feel like, I didn't know, I thought I was maybe missing my mom and dad and my brothers, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be okay. Well, the plan for that night was we were going to go on a night hike. And a night hike, if you've never been on one, is when you go outside and hike on a trail in the dark, and you don't get to bring a flashlight with you. And you have to basically listen for the sounds of the forest, and you have to follow your leader, and you have to stay together and be in the dark. And when we set off on the night hike, I was actually honestly pretty scared, because I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to find my way, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to spend the night away from my mom and dad, and I was kind of nervous, and I almost felt like crying a couple times. And we were hiking through the woods, and we were finding our way through the dark, and we were listening to our leader's voice, and all of a sudden we came out through these trees, and we got into this open field and we looked up into the sky, and I remember I saw thousands and probably millions of stars shining down. And when I looked up at them, I noticed that they were the same stars and they looked the same as they did from my house back home. And I realized that under that great big sky, my mom and my dad and my brothers were really not that far away. And it made me feel much safer and much more protected. And not only that, but the second thing I thought about was, and our leader told us, was God made all those stars. And he made everything we heard that night in the woods and everything we could see around us in the trees and all the animals and the plants. And it made me feel like if God was that powerful and strong, then I knew he could take care of me wherever I was. So ever since then, I've just felt like when I'm in nature and I'm around God's beautiful creation, I feel so close to him, and I feel like he can sometimes talk to me through his creation. I want to read to you a couple of verses, and while I do that, do me a favor. I want you to look up, because sometimes when we're busy in our lives and we're always looking down, we don't always have time to look up and see God's beautiful sky and God's beautiful leaves. So I'm out here in the trees with you today, and while I read you these verses, look up and see what you see. The first verses I'm going to read to you are from Job chapter 12. But ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds of the air and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. And in the book of Psalms, chapter 19, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. So when I read those verses from the Bible, it reminds me that all the beautiful things that you see around you in nature, the plants, the trees, the animals, the mountains, the sand, the water, they all remind us that God is so powerful and he loves us so much. And when I see these beautiful things, that's when I feel the closest to God.
Praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of salvation. Oh, my soul praises you for all your help and salvation. We're all welcome. God's love is for everyone. Let's sing in glad celebration. Let's sing in glad celebration.
Hey guys, it is good to see you. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm Pastor Jenathy, for those of you who don't know who I am, and I'm one of the pastors here. And I also have a friend with me that some of you might know, so I want to see if he'll come and say hi. Titus, come here. Come here. Titus, up, 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 up. There you go. So Titus is with me too, friends, and he's going to be in here helping us out a little bit today, or at least nearby. So I wanted Titus to say hi so that you guys know that he is thinking about you guys too, and he misses you. Oh my gosh, he misses seeing people. So today I want to share with you one of my favorite ways to pray. There are lots of ways to pray, and really prayer is just talking to God, but sometimes that can be, I don't know, maybe awkward or scary, or you don't know what to say, or you're not sure maybe even what you're feeling, and you hear adults pray and they use lots of words, and sometimes that can be confusing, and sometimes it's hard to come up with words. So I found several years ago a way that I can pray using colors and shapes and designs, and there's really no wrong way to pray. And so this is called praying in color. And like I said, there's lots of ways to do it and resources. I want to show you a couple of books that I have. So this one uses what's called mandalas. They're kind of circular shapes. Let me show you one here. So different kind of circular shapes. And this is a book that obviously you would go to the store and buy, or order and buy. And it's just another way that you can pray. And I've used that one before. And then also, this one is called Praying in Color. And this is what this whole prayer is based on, is this book. This is the kid version. And this book will show you all the different ways, let me get to one here, that you can pray with shapes and colors and lines and squiggles, and that there's really no wrong way to do this. So today that's what I want to show you, is praying in color. And so your story this week has been, is about Abraham and his family being out in the desert, and maybe sometimes feeling lost or feeling like God isn't close to them or they're not close to God. And so I'm going to take this piece of paper and I'm going to think about what they might be feeling, or maybe how they might pray, or how I sometimes pray when I don't feel close to God, or maybe I feel like God isn't close to me. So I'm going to use markers, but you can use crayons or markers. You could use colored pencils, whatever you want to use. But I'm going to start, and you start with just a black crayon or marker, okay? And since you're talking about wilderness, that's what I'm going to write down. I'm going to make a shape, any kind of shape. There's, again, no right or wrong way. It's kind of a funny shape, isn't it? And I'm going to write the word wilderness. Now, if you don't know how to write that word, you could ask someone to help you, or you could draw a picture that might remind you of something in the wilderness, maybe something in nature that could represent wilderness for you. And then if you think about, what does it feel like to be in the wilderness? What are some things that you might see? Well, Abraham and his family were in the desert. So I'm going to draw another little shape, and maybe in that shape, I'm going to put stars, because they saw lots of stars while they were out there in the wilderness. So you could put as many stars as you would want. You can draw them any kind of way you want. All right? And so then when we think about them being out in the wilderness, we might think about, oh, sometimes it can be windy, or it can be cold at night. And so what does wind look like? Well, I'm not exactly sure what wind looks like, so I'm just going to draw shapes on what I think when the wind is blowing, what it might look like. Okay? So then what I can do, let's do one more shape. Maybe when they're out in the wilderness, there's not a lot of plants, there's not a lot of water, but sometimes in certain parts of the desert, there might be little bushes or little trees pop up. So maybe I'm just going to draw maybe a little bush with just some little bit of sticks and grass coming out of there. Now you might be thinking, what in the world? That doesn't look like prayer. But here's where the magic of praying in color happens. Now, whoops, my marker's over here. So now I can take my markers, any color I want, and I can think about, how do I feel close to God when I look at the stars? And to help me kind of focus and to help me think about that, I can take my color and I can just color it in. And as I'm thinking and coloring, I can think about, I feel close to God when I look at the stars, because it reminds me of how creative God is, of how big God is. And so my mind is focused on coloring, but it's also focused on God and thinking about God. And if I want to change colors, I can get another color. We'll throw in a little bit of yellow. And thinking about, the stars might seem like they're a long ways away, but they are reminders that God is with us. and that God fills the sky. So that's one way, thinking about stars and thinking about how I can feel close to God. And when I think about the wind, I don't know what color the wind might be, but I think I'm going to use blue. And when I think about the wind, again, I think about what does the wind sound like? What might it look like? And you can even hear the sound of my marker as it's going across the page. And thinking about how do I feel close to God when I feel the wind on my face or my hair, or when I see the wind blowing in the trees. How did Abraham and his family feel close to God? And so we can add things too to our shapes. Maybe I want to go out here and I want to put these same kind of curly cues around the edges. There's no wrong way to do it. And so maybe it's going to look like the wind is blowing around that shape too. And so I can think about how even when we can't see God, because we can't see the wind, right? So even when we can't see God, maybe we can feel God in our heart, or we can think about God in our mind, just like when we can feel the wind, even though we don't see it, we know it's there. And then the last thing I want to show you is this little bush. And we're going to use a little bit of brown and a little bit of green. And so I think about this bush. Well, that doesn't work very well. It didn't look like it was going to work very well. So just a little bit of green. And again, when you color in these shapes, the magic of praying in color, not really magic, like magic's going to happen. But the fun part and the cool part is that it helps you be able to do something with your hands and think about God at the same time. And so thinking about life in the desert. What does life look like? And what does life sound like and feel like? Maybe when you don't feel so close to God. And so I can look at that and I can think, even when I don't feel close, I know that things are growing and that things have what they need to grow, and God is providing those, even out in the desert, even for Abraham's family. And so even in the wilderness, when maybe we don't feel close to God, we can look at the stars, we can feel the wind, we can see things growing, and know that God is providing and that God is in the midst of all of those things. Other things you can do is you can go and you can color around the wilderness, you can decorate it, all the while thinking about how God is with you and what that means. And all of this, friends, is just another way to pray. And it's one of my favorite ways to pray. So I hope you guys are doing great. I'm so glad we're doing VBS with you this way, and so that we can share with you and still connect with you. So I hope you have a good rest of the day and you enjoy the rest of your time with VBS. Take care, you guys. We'll see you soon.
Praise God from whom blessings flow. Praise God, all creatures here below. Praise God above, ye heavenly hosts. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Hi everyone! Thanks for coming to VBS today.
And may the peace of God be with you and keep you safe this next week. Bye.